That was the only way Jinho could describe it as they flew through a massive opening in the vessel's underbelly. The hangar bay beyond was unlike anything he'd seen at the academy. Instead of sterile metal and harsh lighting, everything glowed with a warm, organic luminescence. The walls pulsed gently as if breathing, and the floor beneath them felt more like polished stone than constructed materials. Daehyun landed with surprising grace for something his size, and the moment Jinho slid off his back, the dragon began to shrink and reshape himself back into his humanoid form. Around them, the other dragons did the same, their massive forms compressing into more manageable sizes. Jinho's legs were shaking. Whether from adrenaline or fear or excitement, he couldn't tell. He'd just ridden a dragon through space. The absurdity of it threatened to overwhelm him. "Steady," Minji said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "The first flight is always disorienting. Your human biology isn't accustomed to the transition." "I wasn't wearing a suit," Jinho managed. "How am I not dead?" "The barrier you felt was our flame-given form. One of the first lessons you'll learn is that fire doesn't just destroy. It protects those who can wield it properly." She smiled, her silver-blue scales catching the ambient light. "Come. I'm sure you have countless questions, but first you should see where you'll be staying." They led him through corridors that twisted and curved like the interior of a massive creature. Other dragon beings passed them, some in humanoid form, others choosing to remain fully draconic. Each one nodded respectfully to Daehyun and studied Jinho with open curiosity. "How many of you are there?" Jinho asked as they walked. "On this vessel? About 200. In the galaxy at large?" Daehyun shrugged. "Fewer than there once were. We're an ancient people, Jinho. We don't reproduce quickly, and we've had our share of wars and conflicts over the millennia. But we endure." They entered a large chamber that took Jinho's breath away. It was circular with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside as if there were no hull at all. In the center, a massive flame burned without any visible fuel source, its light casting dancing shadows across the assembled dragons who sat around it in contemplation. "This is the sanctuary," Minji explained. "The heart of our vessel and the spiritual center of our people. The flame you see has burned for 10,000 years, passed down from our original homeworld." "Where is your homeworld?" Jinho asked. A shadow passed over Daehyun's face. "Gone. Destroyed in a war that happened before your species discovered fire. We are wanderers now, moving between the stars, tending to those like you who carry our legacy." They didn't linger in the sanctuary. Instead, Daehyun guided Jinho to a smaller chamber off one of the branching corridors. It was modest by human standards, but felt impossibly luxurious after his cell at the academy. A sleeping platform dominated one wall, covered in materials that looked like silk but felt warm to the touch. A viewing port showed the stars streaming past as they moved through space. In one corner, a small flame burned in a shallow basin, providing both light and warmth. "This is your quarters," Daehyun said. "You're free to come and go as you please. We have communal spaces for meals, training areas, meditation chambers. Minji will show you around tomorrow. For now, I imagine you need rest." Jinho sank onto the sleeping platform, his mind still reeling. "What happens now?" "Now you sleep. Tomorrow we begin your education." Daehyun moved toward the door, then paused. "I should warn you, the training won't be easy. You've let your flame run wild for months, developing bad habits and dangerous patterns. Breaking those habits will be painful, both physically and mentally. If at any point you wish to leave, we will return you to Galactic Collective Space. No one is a prisoner here." After Daehyun left, Jinho lay back on the platform and stared at the ceiling. His hands still bore faint traces of flame, flickering weakly like dying candles. He concentrated, trying to will them to full brightness, but nothing happened. Without the surge of emotion or fear, the fire seemed content to merely simmer. Sleep should have been impossible given everything that had happened, but exhaustion claimed him anyway. His dreams were filled with fire and scales, with visions of vast spaces and ancient battles, with a voice that whispered in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. He woke to find someone sitting at the edge of his sleeping platform. It was a dragon being he hadn't met before, younger looking than Daehyun or Minji. Their scales were deep amber, and they wore their humanoid form with an easy confidence. They smiled when they saw Jinho's eyes open. "Sorry for the intrusion. I'm Sora. Daehyun asked me to check on you and bring you breakfast." They gestured to a tray sitting on a nearby table. "I also wanted to be the first to welcome you properly. It's been nearly a century since we found someone with as strong a flame as yours. It's exciting. Jinho sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. A century? How long do you people live? Dragons? We don't really have a maximum lifespan. We can be killed, of course, but age itself doesn't seem to touch us. The oldest among us remembers the homeworld before its destruction. She's been alive for at least 15,000 years. Sora tilted their head. Those with partial dragon heritage like you tend to live longer than baseline humans. Maybe 2 or 3 centuries if you take care of yourself. The casual way Sora discussed millennia of lifespan made Jinho's head hurt. He moved to the table and examined the breakfast tray. The food was unfamiliar but smelled amazing. Some kind of grain dish with what looked like exotic fruits and a steaming cup of something that resembled tea. Try it, Sora encouraged. We've adapted the recipe for human digestion. Should be perfectly safe. The food was delicious, warm, and filling in a way that the Academy's nutrient paste had never been. As he ate, Sora explained the basic schedule. Mornings would be dedicated to meditation and flame control, afternoons to physical training and practical applications, evenings to history and culture lessons. Daehyun will be your primary instructor, Sora said. He's one of our best teachers. Strict but fair. He'll push you to your limits, but he'll never let you break. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not strong enough? Sora laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. You manifested flame at 16 without any training or guidance. You survived months of uncontrolled awakenings without burning yourself or anyone else. You're stronger than you think, Jinho. You just need to learn to direct that strength. After breakfast, Sora led him through the vessel, pointing out key locations. The mess hall where the dragons gathered for communal meals. The library, filled with data crystals containing thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. The meditation chambers, small rooms where individual dragons could practice in isolation. And finally, the training grounds. The training grounds were massive, easily the largest space on the vessel. The ceiling here was also transparent, offering an unobstructed view of the stars. The floor was marked with intricate patterns, circles within circles, geometric shapes that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Daehyun was waiting for them, already in his humanoid form. He'd changed from his earlier attire into something more practical, loose-fitting clothes that allowed for easy movement. Good, you're here. He nodded to Sora. Thank you for bringing him. You can stay and observe if you'd like. Sora settled into a sitting position along one wall, their expression eager. Daehyun approached Jinho and studied him critically. Show me your flame. Not a full manifestation, just enough to light your palm. Jinho held out his hand and concentrated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small flicker appeared, grew stronger, and finally settled into a steady flame about the size of a candle. You're fighting it. What do you mean? You're treating your flame like an enemy to be controlled, a force to be wrestled into submission. That's why it only appears when you're emotional or stressed. Those are the moments when your control slips and your true nature bleeds through. Daehyun circled around him. Your flame isn't separate from you, Jinho. It is you, a fundamental part of your being, as natural as breathing. But it's dangerous. I could hurt someone. Yes, you could. Just as you could hurt someone with your fists or a sharp object or even harsh words. Danger is inherent in existence. What matters is intention and discipline. Daehyun stopped in front of him. Extinguish your flame, Jinho. Let the fire die, now. Without thinking, without preparing, light it again. Before Jinho could overthink it, his hand burst into flame. Again. Extinguish. Ignite. The cycle repeated a dozen times until Jinho was sweating from the effort. You're still thinking too much, Daehyun observed. Your flame should be as automatic as blinking. Let's try something different. Close your eyes. Jinho obeyed, his heart still racing from the rapid-fire exercise. Forget about flames for a moment. I want you to tell me about a happy memory. The first thing that comes to mind, Jinho thought for a moment. When I was 8, my father took me to see the ocean for the first time. I'd grown up in Seoul, all buildings and concrete. But then we drove to the coast and suddenly there was this endless expanse of water. It was sunset and the whole ocean looked like it was on fire. Orange and red and gold. I remember thinking it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Open your eyes. The station shook again, harder this time. Jinho fell against the metal wall of his cell. His heart pounded in his chest as he pressed his face against the small window in the door. The corridor outside was empty except for flashing red lights. Something was attacking the academy. Something big enough to make the entire station tremble. Jinho tried to pull at the suppression cuffs on his wrists, but they would not budge. Whatever was happening out there, he was trapped in here with no way to help or protect himself. The feeling of helplessness made his chest tight. The emergency alarm suddenly stopped. The red lights continued flashing, but the screaming sound of the sirens went silent. In that quiet moment, Jinho heard something new. Footsteps, but these were not the heavy boots of security guards. These footsteps clicked against the metal floor like claws on stone. The footsteps stopped right outside his cell door. Through the window, Jinho saw a massive shadow fall across the corridor. Whatever stood outside was tall, far taller than any alien species he had met at the academy. The shape looked almost like a giant lizard standing on two legs with wings folded against its back. Then a voice spoke. It was deep and powerful, making Jinho's chest vibrate with each word. The strange thing was that the voice spoke in a language Jinho had never heard before, but somehow he understood every word perfectly. "We seek the one who burns," the voice said. Jinho stepped back from the door. His hands started to feel warm despite the suppression cuffs. How did this creature know about his fire? "I said, we seek the one who burns. The human child who carries fire within his body." Before Jinho could respond, something incredible happened. The cell door simply turned to dust. It did not explode or melt. It just stopped existing, falling to the floor like silver powder. Standing in the doorway was the most amazing creature Jinho had ever seen. It looked like a dragon from old Earth stories, but it stood like a person. Its body was covered in scales that changed color from deep red to bright gold depending on how the light hit them. It stood 7 feet tall with arms thick with muscle, but it was the face that made Jinho stare. The head was long and elegant with horns that curved backward. The eyes glowed like hot coals in a fire. The dragon being looked at Jinho and smiled, showing teeth like black glass. "There you are," it said with clear satisfaction. "We felt your awakening from very far away. Such strong power with no training. You almost killed yourself when you made fire in your classroom." Jinho pressed himself against the back wall of his cell. "What are you? How did you get onto the station?" "What I am is hard to explain. Who I am is easier." The dragon being bowed his head slightly. "My name is Daehyun, and I am one of the Eternal Flame. As for how I got here, well..." He gestured behind him where Jinho could now see more dragon beings filling the corridor. "We came to take you away, obviously." "Take me away?" "I do not understand." Daehyun walked into the cell with smooth, graceful movements. "Those cuffs on your wrists are wrong. Hold still." Before Jinho could say no, Daehyun reached out and touched the suppression cuffs. They glowed bright white for just a moment before falling apart like ash. The second they were gone, Jinho felt a rush of power through his body. His hands burst into flames, but this time he was not scared. The fire felt right. It felt natural and good. "Better," Daehyun said with a nod. "Now we need to leave. The station guards will come back soon, and while we can fight them easily, I do not want to hurt anyone. I am not going anywhere until you explain what is happening." Jinho's flames burned brighter as he got more upset. "You attack a station, break things, and expect me to just follow you." "Attack? Child, we have not hurt a single person on this station." Daehyun's face became serious. "We only suggested very strongly that everyone should hide while we did our work. The only thing we destroyed was your prison cell, which needed to be destroyed anyway." Another dragon being appeared in the doorway. This one was smaller and covered in scales that shimmered between silver and blue. Her voice was softer than Daehyun's. "We should go now. The human military ships are coming and they will not listen to reason." "One moment, Minji." Daehyun turned back to Jinho. "I know you are confused. Your people have been away from the larger universe for so long that you have forgotten what you really are, what you can become. My people are human. From Earth, yes and no." Daehyun crouched down to look Jinho in the eyes. "Humans are human, this is true. But some humans carry something extra in their blood. Something very old. Something that goes back to before your species even had cities or writing. You carry the spark of the eternal flame inside you." Jinho shook his head. "That does not make sense. Humans do not have special powers. Everyone knows humans are average at everything. Most humans, yes, but there have always been special ones. Your old stories talk about them. People who could control fire, who survived things that should have killed them, who lived much longer than normal. Your ancestors called them shamans, wizards, blessed ones. They were just humans who still had our blood in them. Your blood? What are you saying? Daehyun stood up, his wings moving slightly against his back. I am saying that thousands of years ago my people visited Earth. We found humans when they were still very new to the world, and we lived with them. Some of us took human shape, lived among your kind, had children with them. Most of those family lines disappeared or got too weak over time, but sometimes, very rarely, the spark comes back to life. You are one of the lucky few, Jinho. The meaning of what Daehyun was saying made Jinho feel dizzy. You are saying I am part dragon? The word dragon is something humans made up, but yes, basically. The fire inside you is not a sickness or a mistake. It is your heritage waking up. And if you stay here, if you let the Galactic Collective study you and keep your powers locked down, you will never learn to control it properly. You will be dangerous to yourself and everyone near you. Minji spoke again from the doorway. Daehyun, we really must leave now. I am detecting weapons being aimed at us. Then we should not wait any longer. Daehyun held out his hand to Jinho. I know this is a lot to take in all at once. I know you have no reason to trust me. But I promise you this. If you come with us, we will teach you to master your fire. We will show you what you can really do. And when you are ready, you can decide if you want to come back here or stay with us. Jinho looked at the offered hand, then at the flames still dancing on his own palms. He thought about the fear he saw in his classmates' eyes. He thought about the security guards treating him like a dangerous object instead of a person. He thought about the cell they had locked him in without even asking for his side of the story. He thought about his friend Hyejin telling him to breathe. He thought about Professor Velthus trying to defend him. He thought about going back to Earth where people would either study him like a lab animal or lock him away forever. Then he looked at Daehyun and saw none of that fear. Just patience and understanding. If I go with you, Jinho said slowly, can I ever come back? The universe is large and your life belongs to you. Of course you can come back whenever you want. This is a choice, not a kidnapping. Jinho took a deep breath and put his burning hand into Daehyun's scaled one. The flames did not hurt the dragon at all. All right, Jinho said. Show me what I am. Daehyun's smile got wider. Good. Now hold on tight and try not to be scared. Before Jinho could ask what he meant, Daehyun's body started to change. He grew much larger, his humanoid shape melting away into something far more dragon-like. Wings spread out, filling the entire corridor. His neck stretched longer, and his face pushed forward into a proper dragon muzzle filled with those black glass teeth. In just a few seconds, Daehyun had transformed into a full dragon, easily as big as a small spaceship. He lowered his body close to the ground, and Minji, who had also transformed, gestured for Jinho to climb onto Daehyun's back. You must be joking, Jinho said, his voice weak. Do I look like I am joking? Daehyun's voice now sounded like thunder. We are leaving through the outer wall. I strongly suggest holding on tight. Jinho climbed onto Daehyun's back with shaking hands. He found places to grip among the scales and ridges. The moment he was secure, Daehyun launched himself down the corridor at incredible speed. Other dragons flew around them in formation, all heading straight for the station's outer wall. The metal wall in front of them turned red, then white, then simply disappeared as multiple dragons breathed concentrated beams of fire at it. They burst through the hull into open space, and Jinho barely had time to realize he should be dying before a shimmering energy barrier surrounded him, giving him air to breathe and keeping him warm. Behind them, the Academy station grew smaller in the distance, its lights bright against the darkness of space. Ahead of them, a massive ship waited. It was shaped like a giant dragon in flight with a hull that shifted colors like dragon scales. As they flew toward the ship, Jinho looked back one last time at the station. Somewhere on that station, Hyejin was probably very worried about him. His teachers would write reports about what happened. His parents back on Earth would eventually hear that he had been expelled and had disappeared. But for the first time in months, the fire inside him did not feel like a curse or a disease. That was the only way Jinho could describe what happened as they flew through a huge opening in the bottom of the vessel. The hangar bay inside was completely different from anything he had seen at the Academy. Instead of cold metal and bright white lights, everything here glowed with a warm, gentle light. The walls seemed to pulse softly, almost like they were breathing. The floor looked more like smooth stone than built materials. Daehyun landed carefully despite his enormous size. The moment Jinho slid off his back, the dragon began to shrink and change shape back into his humanoid form. Around them, all the other dragons did the same thing, their massive bodies becoming smaller and more person-like. Jinho's legs were shaking badly. He could not tell if it was from fear, excitement, or the adrenaline still rushing through his body. He had just ridden a dragon through open space. The complete strangeness of it all threatened to overwhelm his mind. "Take it easy," Minji said, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "The first spaceflight is always hard on the body. Your human biology is not used to this kind of transition." "I was not wearing a spacesuit," Jinho managed to say. "How am I still alive?" "The barrier you felt around you was our flame given a different form. One of the first lessons you will learn here is that fire does not just destroy things. It also protects those who can use it correctly." She smiled, her silver and blue scales catching the warm light. "Come with us. I am sure you have many questions, but first you should see where you will be staying." They led him through corridors that twisted and curved like the inside of a living creature. Other dragon beings passed them, some walking in humanoid form, others choosing to stay in full dragon shape. Each one nodded respectfully to Daehyun and looked at Jinho with open curiosity in their eyes. "How many of you are there?" Jinho asked as they walked. "On this ship?" "About 200. "In the entire galaxy?" Daehyun shrugged his shoulders. "Fewer than there used to be. We are an ancient race, Jinho. We do not have children quickly, and we have fought in many wars over thousands of years. But we survive and continue on." They entered a large circular chamber that made Jinho stop and stare in wonder. The domed ceiling showed the stars outside as clearly as if there was no hull at all. In the center of the room, a massive flame burned without any visible fuel source. Its light cast moving shadows across the many dragons who sat around it in quiet meditation. "This is the sanctuary," Minji explained in a soft voice. "The heart of our vessel and the spiritual center of our people. The flame you see there has been burning for 10,000 years. We carried it from our original homeworld before it was destroyed." "Where is your homeworld?" Jinho asked quietly. A sad look crossed Daehyun's face. "Gone. Destroyed in a terrible war that happened before your species even discovered how to make fire. We are wanderers now, moving between the stars, caring for those like you who carry our ancient legacy in their blood." They did not stay long in the sanctuary. Instead, Daehyun took Jinho to a smaller room off one of the branching corridors. It was not large, but it felt incredibly comfortable after the cold cell at the academy. A sleeping platform took up most of one wall, covered in materials that looked like silk but felt warm to the touch. A viewing port showed the stars streaming past as the ship moved through space. In one corner, a small flame burned in a shallow stone bowl, providing both light and warmth to the room. "This is your quarters," Daehyun said. "You are free to come and go anywhere you want. We have common areas where everyone eats together, training areas, meditation chambers. Minji will show you everything tomorrow. For now, I think you need to rest." Jinho sat down on the sleeping platform, his mind still trying to process everything that had happened. "What happens now?" "Now you sleep. Tomorrow we begin teaching you." Daehyun moved toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "I should warn you about something. The training will not be easy. You have let your flame run wild for months without control, developing bad habits and dangerous patterns. Breaking those habits will be painful, both in your body and your mind. If at any point you want to leave, we will take you back to galactic collective space. No one is a prisoner here." After Daehyun left, Jinho lay back on the platform and stared up at the ceiling. His hand still showed faint traces of flame, flickering weakly like candles about to go out. He concentrated hard, trying to will them to burn brighter, but nothing happened. Without strong emotion or fear driving them, the flame seemed content to just simmer quietly. Sleep should have been impossible after everything that had happened today, but exhaustion took over his body anyway. His dreams were filled with images of fire and dragon scales, with visions of huge spaces and ancient battles, with a voice whispering words in a language he did not know but somehow could understand. He woke up to find someone sitting at the edge of his sleeping platform. It was a dragon being he had not met before. They looked younger than Daehyun or Minji. Their scales were deep amber color and they wore their humanoid form with comfortable confidence. They smiled when they saw Jinho's eyes open. "Sorry for coming in without asking. I am Sora. Daehyun asked me to check on you and bring you breakfast." They pointed to a tray sitting on a nearby table. "I also wanted to be the first to welcome you properly to our home." It has been nearly a century since we found someone with flames as strong as yours. This is very exciting for all of us. Jinho sat up slowly, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. A century? How long do your people live? Dragons? We do not really have a maximum lifespan. We can be killed in battle or accidents, of course, but age itself does not seem to affect us. The oldest among us remembers our homeworld before it was destroyed. She has been alive for at least 15,000 years. Sora tilted their head. People with partial dragon heritage like you tend to live much longer than normal humans. Maybe 2 or 3 centuries if you take good care of yourself. The casual way Sora talked about thousands of years of life made Jinho's head hurt. He got up and moved to the table to look at the breakfast tray. The food was completely unfamiliar but smelled wonderful. There was some kind of grain dish with what looked like exotic fruits and a steaming cup of something that reminded him of tea. Try it, Sora encouraged. We adapted the recipe to work with human digestion. It should be perfectly safe to eat. The food was delicious, warm, and filling in a way that the Academy's nutrient paste had never been. As he ate, Sora explained the basic daily schedule. Mornings would be used for meditation and flame control practice. Afternoons would focus on physical training and practical applications of their powers. Evenings would be for learning history and culture. Daehyun will be your main teacher, Sora said. He is one of our best instructors. He is strict but fair with his students. He will push you to your absolute limits, but he will never let you actually break. What if I cannot do it? What if I am not strong enough? Sora laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle storm. You created flames at age 16 with no training or guidance at all. You survived months of uncontrolled power episodes without burning yourself or anyone else. You are much stronger than you think, Jinho. You just need to learn how to direct that strength properly. After breakfast, Sora took him on a tour of the vessel, pointing out important locations. The mess hall where the dragons gathered to eat meals together. The library, filled with thousands of data crystals containing countless years of accumulated knowledge. The meditation chambers, small private rooms where individual dragons could practice alone. And finally, the training grounds. The training grounds were massive, easily the largest space on the entire vessel. The ceiling here was also transparent, offering a perfect view of the stars beyond. The floor was marked with complex patterns, circles within circles, geometric shapes that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Daehyun was already waiting for them, now wearing his humanoid form. He had changed his clothes into something more practical, loose-fitting garments that allowed for easy movement and flexibility. Good, you are here on time. He nodded to Sora. Thank you for bringing him. You can stay and watch if you want to. Sora settled into a sitting position along one wall, their expression eager and interested. Daehyun walked up to Jinho and studied him with a critical eye. Show me your flame. Not a full manifestation, just enough to light your palm on fire. Jinho held out his hand and focused his mind. For a long moment nothing happened. Then a small flicker appeared, grew a bit stronger, and finally settled into a steady flame about the size of a candle flame. You are fighting against it. What do you mean? You are treating your flame like an enemy that must be controlled by force. Like a wild animal that needs to be wrestled into submission. That is why it only appears when you are emotional or stressed. Those are the moments when your control slips and your true nature breaks through. Daehyun walked in a circle around him. Your flame is not separate from you, Jinho. It is you, a fundamental part of your being, as natural as breathing air. But it is dangerous. I could hurt someone badly. Yes, you could. Just as you could hurt someone with your fists or a sharp knife or even cruel words. Danger is part of existing in the world. What matters is your intention and your discipline. Daehyun stopped directly in front of him. Now extinguish your flame. Jinho. Jinho fell into a steady rhythm aboard the dragon vessel. Every morning he woke up before dawn and practiced basic flame manifestation until his hands stopped shaking from the effort. Then came breakfast with the other dragons in the communal mess hall. After that, hours and hours of intensive training sessions with Daehyun that left him drenched in sweat and trembling with fatigue. The afternoons brought physical conditioning that was unlike anything he had experienced before. He learned to move smoothly while maintaining his flame. He sparred against Sora and other young dragons, building the stamina necessary to sustain his power for long periods without collapsing. His body grew stronger and more flexible with each passing day. The evenings were reserved for education and cultural learning. Minji taught him about the history of the dragon people, their ancient traditions and customs, their complicated and often painful relationship with the wider galaxy. He learned that dragons had once been numerous and powerful, spread across hundreds of worlds throughout space, but wars with other species who feared their immense power had reduced them to a scattered handful of survivors. The Eternal Flame vessel was one of only 5 remaining dragon ships in the entire galaxy, each one carrying the last precious fragments of their ancient civilization. But it was the training that consumed most of his thoughts and energy. Again, Daehyun commanded, his voice echoing across the vast training grounds. Jinho focused all his attention on the target dummy positioned across the chamber. It was a vaguely humanoid shape made of some special heat-resistant material that could withstand dragon fire. He gathered his flame deep inside himself, feeling it pool in his core like molten metal waiting to be released. Then he pushed it outward through his right arm, down to his palm, and released it in a concentrated burst. The flame shot forward like an arrow, crossing the distance in a heartbeat. It struck the dummy dead center in the chest, scorching the material black but not destroying it completely. "Better," Daehyun said with a slight nod. "Your aim has improved significantly, but your flame dispersed at the last moment. You need to maintain focus all the way through impact, not just during the release." Jinho wiped sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "I am trying. It is hard to hold concentration for that long. I know it is hard. That is why we practice until it becomes second nature." Daehyun walked over to stand beside him. "When you were in danger at the academy, your flame manifested instantly and powerfully. You did not think about it. You did not struggle to maintain focus. It simply happened because your body understood the need. That was different. I was scared and panicking. Exactly my point. Your body knows how to do this instinctively. Your conscious mind is the thing getting in the way." Daehyun placed a hand on Jinho's shoulder. "We need to train your conscious and unconscious minds to work together instead of fighting each other. Again, this time do not think about technique or form. Just see the target and will the flame to strike it." Jinho took a deep breath and tried to empty his mind of all the technical details Daehyun had taught him. He looked at the target dummy and simply wanted his flame to hit it. The fire gathered naturally, flowed down his arm without forced effort, and launched forward in a perfect straight line. This time the flame struck with twice the force. The dummy rocked backward from the impact, and the scorch mark went much deeper into the material. "There," Daehyun said with genuine satisfaction in his voice. "That is what I have been trying to teach you. Trust yourself." They continued training for another 2 hours before Daehyun finally called for a break. Jinho collapsed onto the floor, his entire body screaming with exhaustion. Every muscle ached, and his head pounded from the intense mental concentration. Sora appeared with a flask of water and some kind of energy bar. "You are improving fast," they said, sitting down next to him. "It took me 3 months to hit a stationary target with any accuracy. You did it in 3 weeks, really." Jinho accepted the water gratefully and drank half of it in one long gulp. "Really, Daehyun does not give compliments easily, but I can tell he is impressed with your progress." Sora glanced over at where Daehyun was adjusting the training equipment. He lost his last student about 50 years ago. A human woman named Yoonji who had the spark. She mastered her flames and chose to return to Earth to live a normal life. I think he still misses her sometimes. Jinho had not thought about Daehyun having other students before. "Do many humans have dragon blood?" "More than you might think, but far fewer than there used to be. Every few generations someone awakens. Sometimes they find us or we find them. Other times they live their whole lives never knowing what they truly are, their spark never quite igniting fully." Sora looked sad for a moment. "It is one of the great tragedies of our existence. So much potential lost simply because we cannot find everyone in time." Before Jinho could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. Not the harsh emergency klaxons from the academy, but a deep, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the walls themselves. Daehyun's expression changed instantly. "Everyone to the sanctuary. Now." They ran through the corridors, joining streams of other dragons all heading in the same direction. When they reached the sanctuary, Jinho saw that the eternal flame in the center was burning much brighter than normal, its light almost blinding. Dragons were gathering in a circle around it, their faces serious and focused. An ancient dragon stood near the flame, one Jinho had never seen before. Her scales were pure white, like freshly fallen snow, and her eyes held the weight of thousands of years. This had to be the eldest one Sora had mentioned, the one who remembered the original homeworld. "My children," the ancient dragon spoke, her voice somehow both gentle and commanding. "I have received a distress signal through the flame network. One of our sister ships, the Crimson Wing, has been attacked by a collective military fleet." Murmurs of shock and anger rippled through the assembled dragons. The collective discovered their location near the Outer Rim territories. They are demanding the surrender of all humans with dragon heritage aboard the vessel, claiming they are dangerous unregistered entities that must be contained for public safety. The ancient dragon's expression hardened. The Crimson Wing has refused this demand. They are now under siege. Jinho felt his blood run cold. The Galactic Collective was hunting people like him, hunting them and trying to imprison them just for existing. Daehyun stepped forward. "Grandmother Nari, what are your orders?" The ancient dragon named Nari surveyed the gathered crowd with those ancient eyes. "We will go to their aid, of course. The eternal flame does not abandon its own. But this is not a simple rescue mission. The collective has declared all dragon vessels to be hostile entities harboring fugitives. This is the beginning of a larger conflict, one I had hoped to avoid in my lifetime." She turned her gaze directly to Jinho, and he felt like she could see straight into his soul. "Young Jinho of Earth, you are new to our ways and new to your power. I will not order you to fight. If you wish, you may remain here in safety while we handle this situation." All eyes in the sanctuary turned to look at Jinho. He felt the weight of their attention like a physical pressure. His first instinct was to agree, to stay safe while the experienced dragons handled the dangerous work. But then he thought about the other humans aboard the Crimson Wing, people like him who had awakened to their heritage and were now being hunted simply for being different. He thought about how terrified he had been in that cell at the academy, helpless and alone. He thought about the fire burning inside him, the power he was learning to control. Jinho stood up straighter and met Grandmother Nari's ancient gaze. "I want to help. Those people on the Crimson Wing, they are like me. If the collective is hunting them, then they are hunting me too. I cannot just hide while others fight for my right to exist." A slight smile crossed Nari's face. "Spoken like a true child of the flame, very well. Daehyun, is your student ready for real combat?" Daehyun looked at Jinho for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he nodded. His technique is still rough and he has much to learn, but his heart is strong, and his flame burns true. With proper support, he will be an asset rather than a liability. "Then it is decided." Nari's voice rang out clearly. "We depart within the hour. All combat-capable dragons to your stations. Those who guard the home fires, prepare defensive measures in case we are followed. And may the eternal flame guide us to victory." The sanctuary erupted into organized chaos as dragons rushed to prepare for battle. Sora grabbed Jinho's arm and pulled him aside. "Stay close to me during the fighting," Sora said urgently. "Your first real battle is overwhelming. Do not try to be a hero. Focus on protecting yourself and following orders. Understood?" Jinho nodded, his mouth too dry to speak. His hands were already starting to glow with nervous flame. Within the hour, the Eternal Flame vessel changed course, accelerating toward the coordinates where the Crimson Wing was under siege. As Jinho stood in the hangar bay preparing to launch with the other dragons, he realized that everything was about to change again. 3 weeks ago, he had been a frightened student locked in a cell. Now he was about to fly into battle alongside dragons to save people. Jinho spent most of that time in the hangar bay with the other dragons who would be fighting. The atmosphere was tense but not fearful. These were ancient warriors who had survived countless battles over thousands of years. They checked their equipment, meditated quietly, or spoke in low voices about tactics and strategy. Daehyun fitted Jinho with a special suit made from dragon scale material. It was lightweight and flexible but could withstand extreme temperatures and provided some protection against weapons fire. "This will help keep you safe," Daehyun explained as he adjusted the straps. "But remember, your best defense is your flame. Keep it active at all times once we engage the enemy. A strong flame creates a natural barrier that deflects most energy weapons." "What if I run out of energy?" Jinho asked nervously. "You will not run out. Your flame is not fuel that gets used up. It is part of your life force itself. You might get tired or lose focus, but the flame itself is limitless." Daehyun placed both hands on Jinho's shoulders and looked him directly in the eyes. "Listen to me carefully. In battle, things happen very fast. You will not have time to think about every move. Trust your training. Trust your instincts. And most importantly, trust your flame. Minji approached them carrying a small communication device. This goes in your ear. It will let you hear commands and coordinate with the rest of us during the battle. Do not remove it for any reason. Jinho fitted the device into his ear and immediately heard the chatter of dragons communicating across different channels. It was overwhelming at first. Dozens of voices talking over each other. But gradually he learned to filter out the noise and focus on the important information. Sora joined them, now wearing combat gear similar to Jinho's. I will be flying right beside you the whole time. If you get into trouble, call out and I will cover you. Thank you, Jinho said quietly. His hands were trembling slightly despite his attempts to stay calm. Being nervous is normal, Sora said with an understanding smile. I was terrified during my first battle. I nearly flew into an asteroid because I was not paying attention. But you will do fine. You have good instincts. A deep vibration ran through the entire ship and Grandmother Nari's voice came through every communication channel. We are approaching the battle zone. All combat wings prepare for launch. Remember, our goal is to break the siege and evacuate the Crimson Wings passengers. We are not seeking to destroy the collective fleet. Avoid killing when possible, but protect yourselves and each other at all costs. The hangar bay doors began to open, revealing the scene outside. The Crimson Wing hung in space like a wounded bird, its hull scarred with weapons fire and several sections venting atmosphere. Surrounding it were 12 collective military vessels, their weapons trained on the dragon ship. They were sleek and modern, bristling with missile pods and energy cannons. All wings, launch now, came the command. Daehyun transformed into his full dragon form, and Jinho climbed onto his back along with 2 other young dragons who were also still learning. All around them, nearly 100 dragons launched from the hangar bay in a coordinated wave, their scales gleaming in the light of the nearby star. The collective fleet reacted immediately. Warning sirens blared across all frequencies, and weapon systems locked onto the approaching dragons. A harsh voice demanded their immediate retreat. Grandmother Nari's response was simple. We claim our own. Stand aside or be moved aside. The collective fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked through space toward the dragon formation. For a horrible moment, Jinho thought they were all about to die, but then the dragons responded in perfect unison, exhaling massive gouts of flame that formed a coordinated barrier in front of their formation. The enemy fire struck the wall of flames and dissipated harmlessly. All units break formation and engage, Grandmother Nari commanded. Wing leaders designate targets. Remember, disable their weapons but avoid casualties when possible. The dragon formation split into smaller groups, each one diving toward a different collective vessel. Daehyun angled toward one of the smaller frigates, accelerating so fast that Jinho had to grip tightly to avoid being thrown off. Hold on, Daehyun warned. This is going to get rough. The frigate fired a spread of missiles directly at them. Daehyun rolled sideways, his massive wings cutting through space in an impossible maneuver that should have violated every law of physics Jinho knew. The missiles shot past them, and Daehyun retaliated with a concentrated beam of white-hot flame that struck the frigate's main weapon array. The metal melted and fused together, rendering the guns useless. All around them, similar battles played out. Dragons weaved between enemy ships with breathtaking grace, their flames disabling weapon systems and engines without destroying the vessels completely. The collective crews were skilled, but they were fighting an enemy that moved in ways their targeting computers could not predict. A massive battleship at the center of the fleet began charging its primary weapon, a plasma cannon capable of destroying an entire dragon in one shot. The weapon's charging coils glowed brighter and brighter as it prepared to fire at Grandmother Nari herself. Grandmother, incoming heavy fire, someone shouted over the communications channel. I see it, Nari replied calmly. She flew directly toward the battleship instead of away from it, her ancient body moving faster than seemed possible. At the last possible moment before the cannon fired, she unleashed a torrent of golden flame so intense it lit up the entire battlefield. The flame struck the battleship's hull and spread across its surface like living water, seeping into every crack and seam. The battleship's systems began failing one by one. Lights flickered and died, engines sputtered and went cold. The charging plasma cannon powered down as its energy was absorbed by Nari's flame. Within minutes, the battleship was completely dead in space, its crew alive but helpless. The other collective vessels saw what happened and hesitated. Their commander's voice came over an open channel, filled with shock and grudging respect. Ceasefire. All ships, ceasefire. We cannot win this engagement. The shooting stopped. Grandmother Nari's voice rang out clearly. Commander, we did not come here to fight you. We came to retrieve our people. Let us evacuate the Crimson Wing and we will leave in peace. Continue to attack and we will defend ourselves with lethal force. The choice is yours. There was a long pause. Then the collective commander responded. You have 1 hour to evacuate. After that, we will pursue whatever course our superiors order. I make no promises beyond that. 1 hour is enough. Thank you for your wisdom, Commander. The dragons immediately shifted their focus to the damaged Crimson Wing. Several of the largest and strongest dragons attached themselves to the ship's hull, using their combined strength to stabilize its tumbling motion. Others flew inside through the breach sections to help evacuate passengers and crew. Daehyun brought Jinho close to one of the intact airlocks. We need to go inside and help with the evacuation. Are you ready? Jinho nodded, not trusting his voice. His heart was still pounding from the battle, and his hands glowed with residual flame that he could not quite suppress. They entered through the airlock into chaos. The interior of the Crimson Wing was a mess of damaged corridors, flickering lights and smoke. Dragons in humanoid form were helping injured crew members toward the evacuation points. Some areas had lost gravity completely, and people floated helplessly until someone could guide them to safety. You two, help clear the residential section. A dragon with dark green scales ordered, pointing down a damaged corridor. There are families trapped behind a collapsed bulkhead. We need someone small enough to fit through the gaps. Jinho and Sora ran down the corridor until they found the collapse. A massive support beam had fallen across the passage, and behind it, Jinho could hear voices calling for help. One voice in particular made his blood run cold. It was a child crying. A human child by the sound of it, probably no more than 5 or 6 years old. We are here to help, Jinho called through the gap. Can you hear me? Yes, came a woman's frightened voice. My daughter is hurt. Please, we need help. Jinho looked at the collapsed beam. It was massive, far too heavy for him to lift even with Sora's help. But maybe he did not need to lift it. He placed both hands on the metal and let his flame flow freely. The beam began to glow red, then orange, then white. The metal softened under the intense heat, becoming malleable like clay. Jinho pushed hard and the beam bent just enough to create a larger opening. Come through now, he shouted, quickly before it cools. A woman came through first, carrying a small girl in her arms. The child's leg was badly bruised but not broken. Behind them came 2 more humans, an elderly man and a teenage boy. Thank you, the woman said, tears streaming down her face. Thank you so much, more people needed help. Jinho and Sora spent the next 40 minutes running through the damaged ship, using their flames to cut through debris, seal atmosphere leaks, and guide frightened passengers to safety. By the time the evacuation was complete, Jinho was exhausted but felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had saved them, all of them. As the last passengers transferred to the Eternal Flame vessel, the collective fleet began repositioning itself. Their hour was nearly up. All dragons returned to the ship, Grandmother Nari commanded. Every available space had been converted into temporary housing. The corridors were filled with displaced dragons and humans, all trying to process what had happened. Medical teams worked around the clock, treating injuries. The mess hall served food in continuous shifts just to feed everyone. Jinho found himself helping wherever he could. His flame was useful for countless small tasks. Welding damaged equipment, providing warmth to people suffering from shock, even just lighting dark corners where the ship's systems were overloaded. 3 days after the rescue, Grandmother Nari called a gathering in the sanctuary. Every person who could fit crammed into the circular chamber, with many more watching through communication screens from other parts of the ship. The ancient dragon stood before the eternal flame, her white scales seeming to glow with inner light. My children, we face a new reality. The Galactic Collective has declared all dragon vessels and those who carry our heritage to be threats that must be contained. They believe we are too dangerous to exist freely in their ordered society. Angry murmurs rippled through the crowd. This is not the first time we have faced persecution, Nari continued. Our history is filled with such conflicts. Beings who fear what they cannot control will always seek to imprison or destroy it, but we have always survived and we will survive this as well. A human man near the front raised his hand. What do we do now? We cannot keep running forever. We have children to think about, families. We need stability and safety. You are correct, Nari acknowledged. Running is not a permanent solution. That is why I have made a difficult decision. We will seek sanctuary on Earth. The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Earth was barely part of the galactic community. It was considered a backwater planet by most advanced species. But Jinho understood the logic immediately. Earth was his homeworld, and it was also where the dragon bloodline had originally mixed with humanity thousands of years ago. Earth is not a member of the Collective Military Alliance, Nari explained. They maintain independence in their affairs. More importantly, Earth is where our shared history began. It is where humans and dragons first came together. If anywhere in the galaxy will grant us refuge, it should be the world where our legacy is strongest. Daehyun stepped forward. Grandmother, Earth's government does not even know about the dragon heritage existing in their population. How will they react when we arrive with ships full of refugees claiming ancient connections to their world? That is where young Jinho becomes important, Nari said, turning her gaze toward him. Jinho felt every eye in the sanctuary shift to look at him. His mouth went dry. Jinho is Earthborn and raised, Nari continued. He attended the Galactic Collective Academy as a human representative. He has standing with both communities. He will be our ambassador, speaking to Earth's government on our behalf. Me? Jinho's voice came out as a squeak. I am just a student. I have no diplomatic training. Why would anyone listen to me? Because you are living proof of what we claim, Minji said gently. You are human and dragon together. Your existence validates our entire story. Grandmother Nari moved closer to Jinho, her ancient eyes kind but firm. I know this is a heavy burden to place on one so young, but you have already shown great courage and wisdom beyond your years. Will you speak for us? Jinho thought about all the people crammed into this ship, the families torn from their homes, the children like the little girl he had rescued who just wanted safety and normalcy. He thought about what would happen if they were turned away from Earth with nowhere else to go. I will do it, he said, his voice stronger now. I will speak to Earth's government. I will make them understand. Nari smiled. Then we have a chance. The journey to Earth took 2 weeks through carefully chosen routes that avoided collective patrol zones. During that time, Daehyun and Minji worked with Jinho constantly, preparing him for what was to come. They taught him the full history of dragon and human interaction. They helped him practice his speech, finding the right words to explain impossible things to people who had never imagined such possibilities. Jinho also spent time with the human refugees, listening to their stories. There was Haeun, a woman in her 30s who had discovered her flames while working as an engineer on a mining station. Her co-workers had reported her to authorities out of fear. There was Junho, a 12-year-old boy whose flames had manifested while he was playing with friends. His parents had hidden him for 2 years before the collective found out. There was Bora, an elderly woman who had lived 70 years without her spark igniting until one day it suddenly blazed to life during a medical emergency. Each story was different, but they all shared the same core truth. They were people who had been punished simply for being what they were born to be. Finally, Earth appeared ahead of them. The blue and green marble that was humanity's cradle, the world where Jinho had grown up never imagining he was anything special. Earth Traffic Control is hailing us, the communication officer announced. They are demanding identification and purpose for our approach. Open a channel, Grandmother Nari commanded. Let me speak with them. The communication officer worked his controls, and then Nari's voice was being broadcast directly to Earth's orbital defense network. Earth Traffic Control. This is Grandmother Nari of the vessel Eternal Flame. We come seeking sanctuary for refugees displaced by galactic collective aggression. We carry both dragon people and humans with dragon heritage. We mean no harm, and request permission to enter orbit and send a diplomatic party to your surface. There was a long silence, then a very confused human voice responded. Did you say dragons? As in actual dragons? Yes. Though we are far more than the myths your ancient ancestors created. We request an audience with your planetary government. We have much to discuss, more silence. Then please hold your position. Do not approach any closer. We are contacting the United Earth Council now. The Eternal Flame came to a stop well outside Earth's orbital space, making no threatening moves. Hours passed while Earth's government presumably argued about what to do. Jinho watched his homeworld through the viewing ports and felt a strange mixture of emotions. He had left Earth 2 years ago as an ordinary human boy. Now he was returning as something else entirely. Finally, the response came. Eternal Flame, you are cleared to send a small diplomatic shuttle to Geneva, Switzerland. No more than 6 passengers. Any aggressive action will be met with defensive measures. Understood and accepted, Nari replied. Within the hour, Jinho found himself on a small shuttle with Grandmother Nari, Daehyun Minji, and 2 other senior dragons. They descended through Earth's atmosphere, and Jinho pressed his face to the window, watching clouds and sky give way to land and cities. Geneva was beautiful, nestled beside a pristine lake with mountains in the distance. The shuttle landed at a secured facility where armed guards waited, along with dozens of officials and scientists, all staring at the vessel with mixture of fear and fascination. As the shuttle door opened, Jinho stepped out first. He was human enough in appearance to be less threatening than the dragons. He raised his hands in a peaceful gesture and spoke in clear English. My name is Jinho, citizen of Earth and former student at the Galactic Collective Academy. I have returned home with urgent news about humanity's hidden heritage and a request for sanctuary for those who carry that heritage. A stern-looking woman in formal attire stepped forward. She had the bearing of someone used to authority. I am Secretary General Park of the United Earth Council. These armed guards are a precaution, not a threat. We will hear what you have to say. But I warn you, if this is some kind of elaborate deception, there will be consequences. It is not deception, Jinho said firmly. It is truth, and I can prove it. He held out his hand and called his flame. It responded instantly, burning bright and warm in the afternoon sunlight. The guards raised their weapons nervously, but Secretary General Park held up a hand to stop them. Holographic projection? She asked skeptically. No, ma'am, real fire. Part of me. Jinho let the flame grow larger, then shaped it into a bird that flew in a circle around his head before dissolving back into his palm. I am human, born in soul. But I also carry the blood of dragons in my veins, a legacy from thousands of years ago when our 2 peoples first met. I am not alone. There are others like me, and they need your help. Secretary General Park stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she looked past him to where Grandmother Nari was emerging from the shuttle in her full dragon form. Massive and ancient and undeniably real. This, the Secretary General said quietly, is going to change everything. Yes, Jinho agreed. It is, but change is not always bad. Sometimes it is necessary. Sometimes it is the only way forward. The Secretary General gestured toward a nearby building. Come inside, all of you. We have much to discuss, and I suspect very little time to make very important decisions. As they walked toward the building, Jinho caught sight of his reflection in a glass door. He looked older than he had just a few months ago, stronger, more confident. The fire inside him burned steady and true, no longer a source of fear but a source of strength. He was about to negotiate the future of his people, both human and dragon. It was terrifying and exciting in equal measure, but Jinho sat at a large oval table surrounded by representatives from every major nation and territory. Secretary General Park sat at the head of the table, flanked by military advisors and scientific experts. Grandmother Nari had transformed into her humanoid form to fit comfortably in the room, though her presence still commanded absolute attention. Daehyun and Minji sat on either side of Jinho, ready to support him. The questions came fast and relentless. How many refugees are we talking about? Asked the representative from the Asian coalition. Approximately 400 souls, Grandmother Nari answered. 200 full-blooded dragons and 200 humans with varying degrees of dragon heritage. Most are families with children who simply wish to live in peace, and the Galactic Collective is pursuing them? This from the European Federation delegate? Yes. The Collective has declared all individuals with unregistered abilities to be security threats that must be contained. They do not recognize our right to exist freely. Daehyun's voice was calm but held an edge of anger. A military general leaned forward, his expression skeptical. You claim dragons and humans mixed thousands of years ago. Where is the proof? Where is the archaeological evidence? Minji pulled out a datapad and projected holographic images into the air above the table. These are genetic markers found in approximately 1 in every 10,000 humans. Your scientists have cataloged these markers as unexplained anomalies. They are the remnants of dragon DNA integrated into human chromosomes. The images showed complex genetic structures that made the scientists in the room lean forward with intense interest. Furthermore, Minji continued, your ancient myths and legends from every culture on Earth speak of dragons, of people with power over fire, of beings that could transform and fly. These were not pure imagination. They were cultural memories of real events. That is fascinating from a historical perspective, Secretary General Park said carefully, but it does not address the practical concerns. If we grant sanctuary to your people, we are effectively declaring ourselves opposed to the galactic collective. Earth has worked very hard to maintain good relations with the wider galaxy. You are asking us to risk all of that. Jinho had been quiet until now, letting the elders handle the complex political discussion, but now he felt compelled to speak. Madam Secretary, with respect, this is not just about politics or galactic relations. This is about people's lives, human lives. He stood up and gestured to the holographic display, changing it to show images of the refugees aboard the Eternal Flame. This is Hyun. She is from Busan. She worked as an engineer until her flames awakened and her co-workers reported her out of fear. This is Junho, 12 years old, from New Tokyo. His parents hid him for 2 years to keep him safe. This is Bora, 70 years old, whose flames only awakened last year after living an entire normal human life. Jinho looked around the table, meeting each representative's eyes in turn. These are Earth citizens. They were born here, raised here, and they should have the right to return here. The only reason they are refugees is because the galaxy fears what they can do. Will Earth turn its back on its own people simply because they are different? Is that the kind of world we want to be? A heavy silence filled the room. The North American Union representative spoke up. The boy makes a good point. These are humans, regardless of their abilities. We have a moral obligation to at least consider their situation. But we must also consider the security implications, the military general argued. People who can generate fire from their bodies, who apparently cannot die from age, who can transform into massive creatures capable of fighting military vessels. How do we ensure public safety? The same way you ensure safety with any powerful technology, Daehyun said firmly. Through education, training, and regulation. We are not asking for special treatment or immunity from laws. We are asking for the right to exist without being hunted or imprisoned simply for being born as we are. Secretary General Park tapped her fingers on the table thoughtfully. If we were to agree to this, and I emphasize if, what would this sanctuary look like practically? Where would 400 refugees live? How would they integrate into society? Grandmother Nari spoke with the weight of millennia behind her words. We would request territory where we could establish a community, somewhere remote enough to not cause disruption, but accessible enough for those who wish to interact with the wider world. We would be self-sufficient, requiring minimal resources from Earth's government. In return, we would share our knowledge freely. Medical advances, energy technologies, material science. We have 10,000 years of accumulated wisdom to offer. You are offering a technology trade, one of the scientific advisors said, unable to hide his excitement. The advances that could come from that kind of knowledge sharing would be tremendous. We are offering partnership, Nari corrected gently. Not as superior beings granting favors, but as distant relatives returning home after a long absence. Earth is where our peoples first joined together. It seems fitting that it should be where we reunite. The discussion continued for hours. Representatives argued about logistics, security protocols, legal frameworks, and international cooperation. Some were enthusiastic about the opportunity. Others were deeply concerned about the risks. But gradually, slowly, a consensus began to form. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Secretary General Park called for a vote. All in favor of granting temporary sanctuary status to the refugees of the Eternal Flame, pending further negotiation of permanent arrangements. Hands rose around the table. Not all of them, but enough. More than enough. The motion passes, Park announced. Earth will grant sanctuary. Welcome home. Jinho felt tears spring to his eyes. They had done it. Against all odds, they had convinced Earth's government to take a chance on them. Grandmother Nari bowed her head respectfully. You have our deepest gratitude. You will not regret this decision. Over the next 2 months, everything changed rapidly. The refugees were brought down from orbit in careful stages, with each arrival monitored and documented. The United Earth Council designated a large area in the mountains of New Zealand as the site for the new dragon community. It was beautiful territory, remote but not isolated, with plenty of space for dragons to fly and practice their abilities without alarming nearby populations. Construction began immediately on permanent structures. The dragons used their flames to help shape stone and metal, working alongside human engineers to create buildings that blended both architectural styles. It was a true collaboration, with each side learning from the other. Jinho became a bridge between the two communities. He spent his days helping refugees settle in, translating not just language but culture and context. He helped establish schools where young people with dragon heritage could learn to control their abilities safely. He worked with scientists who were fascinated by the biological and genetic aspects of the dragon bloodline, and he continued his own training with Daehyun, growing stronger and more skilled with each passing day. News of the dragon sanctuary spread across Earth and then throughout the galaxy. Reactions were mixed. Some praised Earth for its compassion and progressive thinking. Others criticized what they saw as harboring dangerous fugitives. The Galactic Collective lodged formal protests but stopped short of taking direct action against Earth. More importantly, other humans with dragon heritage began revealing themselves. People who had hidden their abilities for years out of fear now came forward, seeking the community and training they had never had. Within 6 months, the population of the sanctuary had doubled. 1 year after returning to Earth, Jinho stood on a mountain peak overlooking the dragon community. The settlement below had grown into a proper town, with homes and schools and gathering places where humans and dragons lived side by side. Smoke rose from chimneys, but also from the flames that dragons created freely without fear or shame. Hyejin had found him somehow. His old friend from the academy had tracked him down and made the journey to visit. They sat together on the mountainside, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded Jinho of his own flames. "I cannot believe all of this came from you catching fire in xenobiology class," Hyejin said with a laugh. "You started an entire revolution without meaning to." "I was just trying to survive," Jinho said. "Everything else kind of happened around me." "No, you made choices. You chose to go with the dragons. You chose to fight in that battle. You chose to speak to Earth's government." Hyejin bumped her shoulder against his. "You chose to be brave when it would have been easier to hide." Jinho thought about that scared 16-year-old boy locked in a cell, terrified of the fire burning in his hands. That boy seemed like a different person now, someone from another lifetime. "What about you?" he asked. "Are you going to finish at the academy?" "Already did. Graduated top of my class," Hyejin grinned. "Now I am thinking about staying here for a while. The research opportunities are incredible, and someone needs to document all of this properly for the history books." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon. Down in the valley, lights began to flicker on. Some were electric, but many were flames held in dragon hands, living lights that would never go out as long as there was someone to